And there you go. You're on.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Loki After Show right here on JLJ Media, where all the quality after shows are. I am one of your hosts and the far less talented one, Frank Brand. Joining me on this journey as we break down Loki season 2 is the always handsome in any timeline, Sean Dunphy.
Hello, it's so good to be with you here.
Yes. Now, James Lott Jr., he's the presence in the room. We're doing this here on JLJ Media thanks to his generosity and kindness, and hopefully he'll be able to join us as we break down season 2 to come in and share his thoughts. He's not really delved into the world of Loki, so we'll be able to hopefully maybe get some words of wisdom, his thoughts, his reflections as season 2 continues. But don't let that stop you from sharing your thoughts. The YouTube chat is up and running, so hop in, share your thoughts, and the super chat is enabled as well. So if you want to share any, super chats, bumps, James is always appreciative of that. If you're a big JLJ Media fan, he just did a 16-hour marathon, 16 hours and 5 minutes to be exact. So, show him some love. Show him some love. John, as we get ready to dive into this, before we even get into season 2, just overall season 1, how much did you enjoy that? Just so everybody has kind of a baseline for where we're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, season 1, it was awesome. Like, I know that some people have been down on some of the projects that Marvel has put out, since Endgame. But and I can understand some complaints. I've enjoyed most of it, but like Loki season 1, I feel like set the bar for like that newer stuff after Endgame. I felt like the writing was so good. I love the all the actors that are portraying these roles. Owen Wilson was such like a welcome addition to the to the Marvel family. But like even little things like the TVA and like Loki has just the last time we saw him was like fighting off Thanos, who was trying to collect these Infinity Stones. And there's things at the TVA, like they open up a drawer and people are just using Infinity Stones as paperweights and stuff like that, and just like seeing all the different variants of Loki. And it was just such an interesting story. And like, I loved that season 2 picked up right where we left off at the end of season 1. I just think the writing for this show and everything, the way they tell the story, the way they handle it, like, is fantastic.
Yeah, I feel like the challenge with any of the MCU TV shows is the fan expectation, because like it happened with WandaVision and happened with Loki too for season 1 was people are just scouring, frame by frame, trying to decipher all these clues, some that are real clues and some that are just background details that fans will imbue with importance and try to spin off into their like, oh no, Mephisto's coming. Whether it's a WandaVision, everything's Mephisto. That's what's coming. And sometimes it doesn't happen. And I feel like some fans will then take it like, oh, well, this show stinks now because it wasn't doing what I was kind of putting into the show, expecting that I was going to get out of it. Instead of showing the actual story that the creators are trying to tell them. That right. Said, yeah. I feel like probably Loki. I love time travel stories. So that right there was just in my wheelhouse, where you've got the multiverse, you're traveling through time, you've got variants. All that stuff is just stuff that I eat up. So I really dug season 1 of Loki as well too.
Yeah, and like the time travel stuff, I feel like the rules and the laws of time travel are always handled differently by different movies and different shows and stuff, and like it can get confusing at times. But I feel like the way that Loki handles it all, it's like even at the times that you're you're confused by like what's happening with all the time travel and everything, like they handle it in a way that it doesn't like take away from the enjoyment of the show. Like you can still kind of keep up with what's going on. Like I feel like they've really found a good way to like handle all of the time travel stuff and the questions about it, and like adding humor to it and stuff like that. Yeah, I think they do a great job with that. The writing for the show is just great, I think.
Yeah, and I feel like of a lot of the Marvel characters, I mean, people maybe towards the top of the list are going to be thinking Iron Man, Thor, Captain America. It's kind of the big names when they're thinking of MCU characters that they've enjoyed. But I think equally up there is Loki as well. I think that was an unexpected surprise for Marvel, was just how popular Loki had become in the films that he was in. And so killing him off at Endgame, you're like, whoa, are we kind of putting an end to this character that seems to have a lot of popularity with our fans, and I think they're able, at least with Endgame, come up with a an out clause to be able to continue Loki's story. So I was happy to see that. How about you?
Yeah, I love Tom Hiddleston, and it feels like every time he plays Loki, he just gets better and better. Like he has so perfected, like just portraying the character of Loki, and I'm so glad that because we didn't know at the time when he was killed, right in Infinity War or Endgame or whatever, if like what was going to happen, if we were ever going to see him playing the character again. So like the way that they have managed to create this new branch where we're getting to continue to watch Loki. I'm just thrilled by it. I could watch Tom Hiddleston play Loki forever.
Yeah, because I feel like Loki is I mean, back in the early days of the comics, Loki was just, he was the god of mischief, and more often than not, that just meant he was the bad guy, and mischief was
Yeah.
just evil, and he was against Thor, and he was trying to destroy Thor, take over Asgard, rub it in Odin's face, and I feel like later comics, what I think is hopefully the series has been kind of showing is that there's a lot of gray area to Loki as well too. He's not just evil. There are things that he does care about, and there are things that he does that can help people, but he also has his own agenda, and he also has his own reasons for doing what he wants to do. Sometimes it's to benefit others, sometimes it's also to benefit himself, and if it happens to also benefit others along the way, then that's great too. But I like that there's a complexity to that character that later comics have added, and so I've been excited the way that, especially in the Loki series, where there's been more complexity added, both by the writing and by Tom Hiddleston's performance.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It was like he starts off as the character in that first Thor movie that you just this guy sucks, like not that you didn't like him because Tom Hiddleston does such a good job of like playing him, but like Loki started out as that one-dimensional sort of like villain, bad guy that you don't want to root for, and then slowly became like a villain that you actually like and you do want to root for. And then like as the Loki series has gone on from season 1 to 2 now, it's like you said, like it's added such a complexity to the character that it's like that arc from that first Thor movie that we saw Loki into now. I mean, what a character, right? Like that. It's very complex, very fun to watch. Yeah, Loki might be like one of my favorite Marvel characters in the whole universe. Like there are some that are probably ahead of that, but Loki is up there for me in my top like 5, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, by far, that is the one nice thing, because it seems, at least having somebody that's going to stay in the role for a long time gives you that feeling that you get when you're reading a comic book of a character that you enjoy, and you can keep reading them since they kind of just stay eternally whatever age you want them to be in a comic book. So you can always continue to enjoy their adventures. Live action feels that's a challenge where actors can lose interest, they can age out, they for whether physically or just mentally, they're not really want to continue with it. But to have Tom Hiddleston still invested in this character, and wanting to keep telling stories with him, it's great, because it's just like awesome. I will take as much Loki as Tom Hiddleston is still interested in showing us shades of his character.
Well, yeah, for sure. I totally agree. I think we can get him for a while still, depending on how long they want to keep going. I think he'd be down for it. Like, I don't see him being the guy that's going to be like, no, like, I think I'm done with this character. I think Marvel's going to have to be the one that says like, all right, I think we're done with the Loki stuff for now. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And then the thing about that, tying him into Kang, He Who Remains, is that, I mean, we know we're all building up, the MCU is building up towards a big Kang event, which is going to be kind of the climax of their next phase of movies. So it's like, if Kang's still going to be in the mix, it makes sense to have Loki still around as well,
yeah,
whether it's in future seasons of Loki or in any of those films, or both.
yeah, I agree.
Now, I will ask you, just as before we get into season 2, is the end of season 1 was we finally get to meet He Who Remains. They didn't call him Kang yet. We were, being alluded to that, but we did see that at least in this iteration of the universe, it was just one Kang, and he was preventing from the timeline, from the sacred timeline, from fracturing. That's why they were trimming all these different variant timelines. But if they were left to go unchecked by his death, then we'd be dealt with a multitude of Kangs, which would be even worse than just the one Kang or the He Who Remains. For you, did you enjoy the introduction of the slow introduction of Kang that we got at the end of Loki season 1?
Yeah, I did, because it was just, I know there's been a lot of controversy with like Jonathan Majors and everything too, but like, but taking that part out of it, just looking at the performance and everything, like the way the character was introduced was so interesting to me, because right away you get this like sinister sort of bad vibe from this guy Kang, or He Who Remains, that's sitting at the, you know, the top of this TVA, um and it's like, you know, that he's a bad guy, you know, like the way that the character is portrayed too, like, you know that he's a bad guy, you know that he's evil, but like you like, you can't help but believe what he's saying in that moment when he's telling them that, like, listen, you don't like me, but like, I'm holding back a much worse fate for you and the rest of the universe. Like, and it's like, God, I hate this guy, but he's right. I know he's right. So I felt like it was a really effective, like impactful introduction to this character. I thought, yeah, the way that it was written, the way that it was acted, I thought was great. I really enjoyed getting this first introduction of Kang, and as He Who Remains.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Jonathan Majors delivered an interesting performance for him for sure. It was kind of made you take notice, like, oh, this is an intriguing character. Yeah, part of me, and I think maybe that kind of goes into the larger fan criticism, maybe at least concerns that they have with the current phase and where Marvel and the MCU films are heading, is I don't know. I mean, certainly Marvel is thinking ahead, but like,
Yeah.
I felt like some of this Kang stuff was it was a little too vague. Like, we're just going to be saying stuff that, at least in the moment, doesn't really mean anything, but it's just
Mm.
kind of get kind of creeped out without really kind of locking in some details that I thought would have really clearly defined what the the stakes and his agenda and him all about. I mean, even just by teasing, it was like, is He Who Remains. We're not really getting him called Kang until we see him in Quantumania. I don't know. I feel like, comparatively, I never want to feel like that we're just doing carbon copies of storytelling the way that Marvel built up, phase 1 up until Infinity War and Endgame. I don't think I need to have that same kind of, you don't have to follow that same route for the Kang storytelling, but it still felt, at least, I don't know. I was more invested in the Thanos storyline than with Kang so far. So I don't know. Uh,
Yeah.
do you have any concerns about where the MCU is going in relation to Kang being kind of like the big bad for this next phase of films?
Uh, I don't think, with where we're going to end up, I don't think, but I do agree with what you're saying, like how it was kind of vague to start off the way they did. And like, you don't really want as much of a slow burn and a build up. Like, let's like kind of get into it. But I do think once we get to the destination that we're driving for, like, I'll be satisfied. But I do agree with what you were just saying about that, about how like it felt kind of vague, not referring to him as Kang yet, and like only as He Who Remains and all that. But yeah, no, I mean, I could see both sides of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I guess you've spent 20 odd films and a couple TV series to build this universe, but also to educate your audience. I mean, if you look from where we were from the first Iron Man to the end of Endgame, I mean, blew open the Marvel storytelling in terms of the characters that we shot. We went to outer space, different countries, different cultures. I really kind of opened it up wide, and I felt like kind of got the audiences on board with crazy concepts and buying into everything that's fun about Marvel storytelling. And so I felt like when it got to the introduction of Kang, it's like, I feel like, to me, it's like, yeah, I don't know if you can go back that slow again, because it's like you've built your audience up to expect all this stuff, they're on board. And then I felt like it was almost like a little down, like a reverting back to the kind of slow playing that you did with Thanos. We're kind of taking it slow. We're just little nuggets here and there, were kind of vague-ish of sorts, until you really start getting in towards, like, I mean, it's not really even, I mean, do we really get to see him in Infinity War really become a character of his own? But we're just seeing him in like teases in the end of the other films. But I feel like now, like, to kind of go back and do that slow ramp up, it's like, I don't know. I feel like your audience is like you've got them geared. You can be faster with the storytelling.
Right. Right. Do you think that that's like become an issue with a lot of different franchises, I guess we'll say, like between Marvel kind of doing the same thing now with Kang they did with Thanos? And I feel like we've talked about this with some of the Star Wars shows that we talk about, like kind of just giving us little teases of our villain, and it's like, just give us the villain. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, let's get into this. Like, we have our heroes, they're already doing stuff. Like, they need a villain, give it to us. Like, no more little, like one little hint there, one little tease there. So I can definitely feel that frustration also, and that it feels like they try to like slow burn some of this stuff, and I can appreciate a good slow burn, but like, I don't want everything that I watch to be like, oh, we're just going to give you this much of this villain, and then you're going to wait a year until you get any other little, sight of him again.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough with production schedules and stuff, but there are parts of me that feel like, are you confident you know where you're taking the story yet? And that, or are you just being vague because you're still trying to figure out exactly where you're going in later films? And so you can't really start being definitive about a lot of stuff at this moment, because it could, maybe you're wrong and you might change. And then you've got to really explain why those things were changing, because audiences will call you on that. Well, you already said this, or you already did that in this TV show or this film, and now you're saying it's this. How come? What's up? So
right.
I feel like it's tough if you don't know if you don't have a rock solid knowledge of where you're ending. I feel like it's tougher to kind of plant seeds that are enticing enough for the audience to be like, I'm satisfied enough and I'm excited to see where you're going to take me, as opposed to be like, are you being vague and do you even really know what you're doing with the storytelling? So
yeah, no, I can totally feel that. It feels like a lot of shows, a lot of things now these days are like that, where it's like you have this one great idea and you can build off it a little bit, but you never really figure out where you want to go with it. So like, you're just making it up as you go along, and one bad decision, the whole fan base is going to turn on you. It's like
that I feel like that is the one thing now that fans have been kind of educated, or have been brought up in this lifelong, like with Star Wars, this lifelong love of this property. It's audiences seem to be less forgiving. It's of when they're feeling like, hey, you're not really serving at least what I think the story you should be telling is. So now you guys are ruined. You guys are blowing it, and Marvel stinks now, or Star Wars is forever.
Yeah. Everything's so public now too. Like, I know, not to turn this into a Star Wars stream, I know we're talking about Loki, but like, even the fact that the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, they couldn't figure out who they wanted to direct these movies and stuff. It's like, if you don't even have the full story you want to tell, like, at least have the same team in place the whole time to sort of like drive the story. Like, the one that they started, they'll figure out how to finish it. But when you're bringing in new people to tell different stories that are supposed to be part of the same trilogy, like, and I feel like that's what we get with a lot of these shows too, where it's just an incomplete vision and then flying by the seat of your pants. Like, let's see if we can land this thing, if we can figure out a way to do it. But it's like, I want you to figure this out before you start feeding us whatever you're feeding us, like.
I agree. And I can't just pin that all on Marvel. I mean, they're part of Disney, and with Disney Plus coming on, that's a lot of content that they're asked to provide for that, and really ramp up their kind of production pipeline, and admittedly not have the infrastructure to support such a bigger production slate. And I think it showed in terms of a lot of the, whether it's through visual effects, through the storytelling. I think it kind of showed that it was just tough to maintain that level of quality that people felt that they got in the earlier Marvel MCU films in this current slate of films and TV shows. But I think now with the reduced pipeline and the reduced production slate, I think that's them realizing like, yes, we overstretched ourselves, and now we're going to dial it back and be able to give more of that kind of quality control on a smaller number of movies or TV shows to really show the fans like, yes, we can absolutely deliver at the level that you've come to expect from us.
Yeah.
So as we end of season 1, it really does. We find Loki and Sylvie with He Who Remains, and it becomes that big point. Do you kill me and just embrace whatever is coming next, or is it a con? And he's just saying that so you don't kill him, and things are just going to remain as they are. And it comes down between Loki and Sylvie having two differences of opinion. Loki's all about like, whoa, maybe he's telling the truth. Maybe we should take some time to think about it. Sylvie's like, nope, he's got to die. This guy is, he's tortured me, and he's the reason why I'm stuck the way living the life that I'm living right now because of him. So he's got to go. For you, John, did you side with either Loki or Sylvie more, or could you see both points of view? How are you feeling about the decisions made at the end of season 1?
I felt like I sided with Loki more in that moment. Like I think I would have been a lot less gung-ho about what Sylvie was doing. Like I just feel like I get why she felt the way she did. Like once we started to see her story, like how she was like kind of like being chased and she was a child, right? It felt like from a very young age. I get that like visceral reaction of like, I finally made it to the end of this thing, this TVA that's haunted me for my entire life. Like I'm going to end this here and now. I don't care what this guy is saying. But like when Loki said at some point in the episode in the premiere, was said like, we got to the end, we got to He Who Remains, and he started making sense. Like I sided with Loki because I felt like in that moment, it's funny to say this about Loki, but it felt like he was the more level-headed one, like whereas Sylvie was just so fired up about like finally getting to the end of this like journey that she was, trying to take down the TVA that ruined her life. And I get why she felt that way. But like I said, like I felt like Loki was trying to look at this like, wait a minute, maybe this isn't the right thing to do. So I totally sided with him in that whole confrontation.
Well, I mean, Sylvie would have pushed you through a time door as well. So sorry about that, John. Yeah.
I would have been time slipping.
So she does that to Loki at the end of season 1 and kills He Who Remains, kills Kang, and as he dies, that ominous warning, like, oh, I'll see you soon. Get ready. It's gonna be fun. And we see the timelines fracture. And then we go back to the TVA, and all of a sudden the statue that we saw of the timekeepers is now also a big statue of Jonathan Major, which that's the only thing that first means. Like, if you're gonna do Kang, just give me that great big blue mask and purple helmet that he wears. I don't need to see Jonathan Major's face, but okay, whatever. And he runs into Mobius and B-15, and neither of them recognize him. That's where we're left. So it's just an interesting kind of way for us to enter into season 2, where we don't know exactly where Loki is, but it seems like he's slipping through time, whether he's in the past or he's in the future, whether he's in the present where we left him at the end of season 1. He's bouncing all around there. Coming into season 2, were you excited about the introduction to it? Were you glad that it picked up right where we left off at the end of season 1?
Yeah, that's actually what I was hoping for. I was like, I want to pick up right from this moment. Like the crazy like experience that Loki just went through with Sylvie. Now he's back here. This like these two characters in B-15 and Mobius that we spent with the whole season with now have no idea where he is. I want to pick up right from this moment and see where we go from here. And that's exactly what we got. So
it was great. And before we dive more into it, just John, the aesthetic of the TVA, that is one of the things I really resonated with in terms of Loki, is just the set design and the way they kind of brought the TVA to life. How much did the set design really impress you about the TVA?
I think it's awesome. I love how it's this like it's outside of really all time and space, right? But it has like this tacky 70s, like late 60s, early 70s feel like. And that's just the way it's always existed. Like, I just love the look of everything, and how it looks like that, like in the offices. But then when you get some of those shots of like this huge city, that's futuristic city, like it's beautiful. Everything looks beautiful in the set design and everything. Yeah, absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's just that interesting conundrum of that kind of 60s, 70s aesthetic. Yeah, we also have flying vehicles outside,
right? Right. And these massive statues, and like it's just, and then everybody's walking around with like futuristic armor with these like pruners that like just cause people to like just disappear from existence. You know what I mean? It's like, but but you have like a dial, like a phone that you have to do like spin the dial for. It's like what is this? It's great.
So yes, as you were saying, John, we do find out that Loki is time slipping, and he's going from the past, where he's seeing a Mobius and B-15 that are from before he actually met them, which is why they don't know who he is. and then he's jumping back into present time where he's seeing Eugene Cordero uh, uh, playing, the sad sack, yeah, lower rung employee, uh, and getting, which is great. So he's able to kind of figure some stuff out. But while that's all happening, Mobius and B-15 are being called in to explain what's been going on. And we get to see about that without He Who Remains, without Kang and the Timekeepers. With them gone, the TVA is in a little bit of chaos. How are you feeling about the state of the TVA post the slaying of Kang?
God, it's one of those things where it's like I don't really know what what to think. You know what I mean? Like it's like obviously people are freaking out, they're nervous, but like what's funny to me is that like the things that people like Mobius and B-15 are most concerned about is just like making sure everybody knows that like you've been fooled this whole time. Like you have a life outside of here, your variants, but it's like at the same time we have this screen in the background where all these different branches of the multiverse are growing, and it's like chaos is ensuing, and it's like what are you supposed to be concerned, like most concerned about here? It's like it just seems so chaotic, and I think that's why I like love it, because I'm like I don't know what to think about any of this right now, honestly. um
Yeah,
yeah.
because it seems like, at least like for the judges that have been working for the TVA, which are kind of in without any sort of other leadership, are kind of the ones that are trying to kind of oversee everything's going on. They're definitely not on the same page, because there is Mobius and B-15 with a severed head of one of the timekeepers laying right there on the table, saying, "Yeah, how can we trust anything that they've been telling us to do when they're just robots?
Mhm.
We have no idea, who's programmed them, what their story is, what the deal is." And they're able to convince one judge who's able to be like, "All right, we're going to hold off on pruning other timelines," but the other one does not seem uh, interested in wanting to kind of be more open to stuff. She's just like, "Nope. Well, why don't we just keep doing what we've been doing and just prune these timelines, baby? Who cares if we're killing
Right.
variants? Let's prune them."
And then you have that one guy that's just sleeping through it all. So it's like you have like every extreme. It's
Yes.
like one guy that literally doesn't care at all, that is just passed out. You have, the one judge that's just sitting there like, all right, we should end all pruning, even though these timelines are going haywire and there's power surges all throughout the TVA. And then you have this other general over here, General Dox or whatever, that's like, no, we have to get out there, we have to end all these timelines, we have to keep pruning. And B-15 the whole time is going, we've been committing atrocities and like genocide and so that's why like I feel like I don't even know what to think about what's happening here, because one guy's passed out and somebody else is trying to continue just doing what the TVA's been doing. It's like I don't know what I'm supposed to feel right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that whole time Loki's trying to get to Mobius, but he keeps skipping through time. But he's able to finally do one skip into, I guess it is the past, where he's able to be in that conference room where Mobius is talking to the judges, and sees they're both looking at the same kind of wall. And in Mobius's time, it is a painting or mosaic of the timekeepers, but in Loki's past, it is just a like a sculpture of He Who Remains, kind of in profile as he's turning his head around there. Uh, which helps Loki when he does finally catch up to Mobius in that same conference room in the right time, is able to help make the point that no, guys, this is the one that's really behind all of this, and does what I think everybody would like to do, is to smash a wall and have some really cool reveal behind it. I mean,
Yeah.
how many times do you get a chance to do that in life?
Oh, I agree. I'm still waiting for that moment for myself. So
Yeah,
um
if I could tell you just the number of walls I have smashed and have nothing behind it, which sadly, in the hopes of a cool reveal, to only have, to made my people I know just angry at me. Why did you do that? I thought there was going to be a cool thing behind here. I guess not.
yeah, no, seriously. And those, so the what was underneath that mosaic of the timekeepers, um was that just one He Who Remains just showing off different profiles of his face, or was that like, could that have been from a time where there was some sort of like council of Kangs? like ruling over the TVA? Like, do you think that was like all one person, just different profiles, or was that multiple Kangs that were like ruling the TVA at one time? Do you think?
Uh, that's true. I mean, that's a really good point. I mean, I feel like it does make sense for it to be multiples, but also could Kang be vain enough that he's like, no, 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 I want you to have every angle of my face on here, not just
Right?
not just my front view. You got to see all the sides of me.
Yeah, yeah. That was one thing that I was wondering about, but
I mean,
I'm super curious about this recording too that Loki heard in that room when he was back in time.
yeah. Again, just a snippet to kind of give you a little tease about something. How that's going to play into the larger picture of these episodes, I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's going to be a lot of going backwards and forwards in time in these next several episodes. So I can't imagine that they would put that there and not have some sort of payoff for us.
Yeah, yeah.
So Mobius, even after one of the judges says, "We're going to get Sylvie. That's our goal. We're going to get her." And Loki's all about like, "Yeah, let's go get her." And Mobius like, "No, no, no. I don't know if you know this, but you're jumping around in time. First, tell me what the heck happened, and two, we got to make you stop skipping through time." Which I thought the effect of him skipping through time looks just as painful as Mobius thought it did, but didn't want to say that to Loki.
Yeah, I honestly, this was Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston are so good together. Like the way that they like just play these characters and the banter they have back and forth is so much fun to watch. Like the way that he's time slipping and Loki's asking him like, "How does it look? Does it look bad?" and then like Owen Wilson finally breaks down like, "It looks terrible. It looks like you're dying or being born or both at the same time," which I actually thought was interesting because this episode was called Ouroboros, and which is a character that we get introduced to as well. But the Ouroboros is like, the world serpent, like life ending and new life beginning. It's like the infinite loop or whatever. And like, so the fact that we got that line from Owen Wilson at that point where it's like, it looks like you're dying and being born at the same time. And like all these little hints to like what the theme of this episode is about almost, like I just thought was very interesting. And just going back and forth from being in the past to the present to the future. And like, it was super interesting, all this stuff. Yeah. But the effect of Loki actually time slipping, I thought was awesome, disgusting and awesome at the same time.
Yeah, I know we've been singing Tom Hiddleston's praises on this, and we've touched briefly on Owen Wilson, but yeah, he is really just kind of like that unsung hero of this. I mean, it was Tom Hiddleston's already great, but having somebody equally as great to be able to bounce off of has just, I mean, they made that partnership really just spark on screen.
We need like a like an outside of this story, like an Owen Wilson, Tom Hiddleston, like cop movie where they're partners or something. You know what I mean?
It's true. Like, it's like, why do you guys play so well together? Let me see you in something else. Uh, we do see though that Mobius, I do like them in the elevator, as Mobius is telling me how terrible it's looking, but then it pans over to the other woman in the elevator as well, and she's like, yeah, this is gross. This is gross.
Yeah.
But Mobius has got a plan, and his plan involves finding Obi, or Boris, as he's fully known as, but Obi for short, because he's the TVA's tech expert. So if there's something wrong, if people, he's going to be the one that's going to be able to be answering it. Played by no other than Academy Award winner Ki Hung Kwan. So
yes,
yes, I mean, it was great to see him in this role. I'm glad that he's a fun actor, and it's nice to see him getting more opportunities after Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, no, definitely. Absolutely fell in love with this character immediately, and most of that has to do with the actor. Like it's, what I mean. I feel like so endearing. I do have some questions about him though. Like I feel like he's been down there for so long. We had the joke about like how Mobius was his last visitor, and it has been 400 years since he's been down there. Like, do you think that OB is like a robot or something? Like, because I feel like it's interesting too that like Mobius doesn't remember ever even meeting him, right? And like was kind of making things up, but like OB does. And I feel like one thing that like we see is that a lot of TVA employees, right? Like Mobius and B-15 have been telling people like you've been getting your mind wiped, your memory wiped. But OB remembers things far further back than like a Mobius does. Like it's like I'm just like it's interesting that like would OB not be getting his mind wiped? Like could he be some other kind of figure like in the TVA? Like, I don't know. Like I don't. He doesn't seem like just a regular employee of the TVA to me. Like
I agree with you on that to the point where I don't think he may be a robot, but I think he could be more involved in what's the bigger picture of what's happening than he's letting on. Because you're right
yeah,
for all those little details that you mentioned.
right. I don't really think he's a robot, but like I just mean like it just struck me that like he's recalling things that happened 4 centuries ago. And it's
Yeah.
like everyone else is getting their memory wiped, and I love him, and I want to trust him. I want him to be part of the team, but like, could there be something more to him that's like he's linked to Kang in some way, or he who remains in some way that it's like he could end up being like a surprise, not even a bad guy, but just like he's being forced to do the bidding of he who remains or something like that. Could we find out there's more of like a sinister side of him or something like that along the way? I don't know.
I mean, it definitely would be playing against expectations because if you see him, you're just naturally predisposed to be thinking, oh, yeah, of course, he's a good guy. Whether it's his real life and how he is at award shows with people and how he is on social media, just meeting people, just naturally excited and enthusiastic. His roles where he's been more heroic, but to actually kind of be a bad guy or at least bad guy adjacent, uh, but giving you that veneer of that good guy image, could be interesting. It might be a nice twist on what people would be expecting from him.
Yeah, yeah. I hope he turns out to be a good guy because I want him on our side. But
Yeah.
it was something that I thought about that I was just like, this is interesting.
For me, like the sequence once they get over it and meeting OB was kind of like the big teaser that they let out of Loki earlier in the year, which is that little extended clip of them talking about time skipping in the TVA and how that's not possible. But as Loki time skips back to 400 years ago and sees OB and starts having a conversation, it's rippling through time and resonating with present day OB. And he's remembering, like, oh, wait, I did have this conversation with him. So
Yeah,
it was fun to see how they played with time and how going back into the past would then affect the present.
right. I thought this whole scene was brilliant. This was like, and this is exactly what I mean about like the time travel stuff in different shows and movies that you watch. Like it can get confusing sometimes. And I feel like that's why a lot of people don't love time travel stuff because it's like, what the hell are you even talking about? But it's like this was done in such a way that like you could follow what was going on. It's like, oh, of course, Loki's back in time right now, talking to the same person Owen Wilson is talking to. And so of course he's in the past. So whatever he's saying right now, OB is going to remember as he's talking to Mobius in the present time. And it's like, so you can follow it all. And it's just super entertaining and funny to watch. I thought this was like brilliantly done. Really, really well done.
Yeah, just where it's like where either Loki or Mobius would say, like, yeah, I'm time skipping. That's not possible in the TVA, but you just saw it happen. That's right. I did.
And I loved how both in the present with Mobius and in the past with Loki, Obi was like, yeah, you're right. I'm having trouble reconciling that.
And it is interesting where his job is that he's just taking care of all these different requests at the TVA, where it's just things are coming down like bank tubes with work orders, and he's filling them out and sending them back up in tubes. Yeah, I feel like he's really dialed into the ins and outs of this TVA, so I'll be curious to see what the bigger plan for him is this season. I feel like if
Yeah.
they're just using him as just this like side character, I feel like I don't know. I want to believe that there's going to be more for him coming on in future episodes.
I agree. Um, yeah, I love OB. I already fell in love with OB. So, um, I thought it was interesting too. He's like, yeah, I'm just when Mobius is like, oh, how are the other guys doing? And he's like, no other guys, it's just me. And talking about how like the work orders pile up if he takes a break, so he just keeps going, no sleep. Like this guy's just been down here alone for centuries, just never sleeps.
Yeah, what a great existence. But during that conversation, they're able to figure out that, hey, we could stop Loki from skipping if we make an extractor. And the idea is that we could extract him from the temporal loom and pull him out just as from the moment after he's kind of pruned from the timeline. We extract him, and he will return back to his present state in present day, kind of like a factory reset for Loki. So no more time skipping. He's like factory minty fresh, which sounds like, in theory, sounds like okay. But what the process of actually having to do it is, one, Loki has to kill himself. Two, Mobius has to go out and set up the extractor, and if he stays out there too long, the temporal loom, which is just the raw time that's converted into timelines, will disintegrate his suit and rip the skin off his bones, which, I don't know, leads to a lovely scene. I'm sure you enjoyed this, John, of Mobius and Loki debating which fate is worse.
Right. This was great. This really was great. Oh my God. Just I don't have anything else to say. It was just great. It was really funny. How do you choose between either? I think I would rather die than have my skin peeled off. And then, because they were talking about how Mobius would get to live, and he's like, well, why would I want to live with no skin? Like, I think I would rather die. So,
yeah, that's a tough one to be able to, like, as much as I would want to say I will gamble with the skin being ripped off of me, only in the hopes that to think that surely medical science will figure out a way to put skin back on me, right? I would feel like I'd be gambling on that, and then go through an enormous amount of pain to find out that no, medical science has not figured out how to put skin back on your body once it's been ripped off. And then I'd be really mad at myself for not just, I should have just died. I should have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the big thing is they have to go to the temporal loom room and coordinate their efforts. And OB gives Loki a watch. And when the sensor turns green, that's when he's supposed to prune himself, and he's going to get extracted out of there. But of course, nothing goes to plan, and Loki time slips into the future. And we get to see where, I guess that's the hardest thing at the TVA, where you're trying to find a baton to prune yourself, and everywhere he's looking, there's no batons. There's no weaponry to be found at all in here. So it's him just searching around, panicked before time runs out. I was like, how the heck am I going to be able to prune myself before the sensor turns green and it's too late for me?
Right.
For you, I felt like maybe the future stuff didn't quite land for me as much as, because I guess knowing where the episode ended, where we get to see the TVA agents going out with all this armory, maybe that explains why there wasn't in there. I mean, one, we don't know how far into the future he skipped.
Right. That was the big thing for me, was like, how far did we actually go? Because like the situation that they're dealing with, right, when before Loki time slipped into the future, at that moment, like the situation that OB is trying to stop, where he's telling me he has to close these blast doors and everything to protect, like, it doesn't look like it would have taken very long. It looked like it was already like a dire situation before Loki time slipped into the future. So it makes me feel like that might not have been that far into the future. I could be totally wrong, but it was that kind of threw me off a little bit, because I was like, did they fix that problem? And now he's like 2 centuries ahead of that, into the future from that, or was this just a couple of days after that? It was hard to kind of figure out how far into the future Loki actually went there, I guess, if that makes sense.
No, I agree with it was, other than him not being able to find, which and not until the end of the episode did they kind of at least have an inkling of how far he may have skipped. But we also see Sylvie make an appearance as well through the trying to open up the doors of an elevator as well. So you're right. I don't think it's going to be 2 centuries from now, because that would seem odd. But I mean, it could be certainly, who knows, 2 months, could be 2 weeks, could be 6 months.
Right. Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah. So I guess like the big moment is Mobius goes out there and he's getting getting the extractor in place, and he's waiting and he's waiting, and the sensor goes off for Loki in the future, and he's like, oh man, this stinks. I don't have an extractor. I don't have a baton to prove myself. But he sees Sylvia coming through the doors. And then all of a sudden, Loki is then pruned from behind. But they deliberately do not show who was pruning him and what the whole context for that was. Who do you suspect was pruning Loki in that moment?
This is a big question. And I'm really not sure. I feel like part of me wondered, like, because we did see all those hunters, whatever, the soldiers kind of going through that time door. Like, it seemed like they were going out to start pruning things and, getting rid of people and stuff. And like, part of me wondered, was it some of those hunters that traveled through that doorway and they ended up in that time period and saw Loki, and one of them was the one that pruned him? Or could it have been Mobius or something like that, or that, that just kind of knew? I don't know. I feel like I have no idea. I still want to know why that phone was ringing, who was calling. Could it have been like a Loki from a different timeline came and pruned Loki? Like, I have no idea.
For me, I'm going to speculate that it was Loki pruning himself.
Like, do you think that was a thought that I had, that like Loki made that phone ring at that exact moment so he would be in that exact spot at that time, and so that he could prune himself or something? Like, that's something that I was thinking about also.
Because I'm only thinking that once he's pruned out, Sylvie can continue to come through the elevator door, and then you have a scene with that future Loki and Sylvie kind of like meeting up there and able to talk in the TVA. That's the only reason I get that for me seems to be the obvious part. And then find out who's on that phone.
That would make the most sense to me, I think. That it was something like that. Yeah.
But meanwhile, though, Obi can no longer wait, starts closing those blast doors, and Mobius tries to wait for as long as he possibly can, but then starts to try to make a run for run is being generous. Really slow walk to the blast door, and which he's clearly not going to make until he turns back and he sees Loki does get extracted, conveniently, smashes right into him and is able to push him back through the blast doors before his suit is completely disintegrated.
Yeah. That was another thing about OB that I was thinking too, that I was like, could he have waited a few extra seconds, been like, Mobius, you have to start coming back now, I'm about to hit the button. You know what I mean? Like, if there is something more to him, could it be like, all right, I'm just going to close these doors now, I have to save the TVA. That's what He Who Remains would want. Like
no, that's true.
I don't know.
What's your deal, Obi? What's your deal?
So I'm just highly suspicious of everyone.
But Loki has been extracted. He has been set. He's no longer going to be reset. He's no longer going to be skipping through time. And now we find out that, other than one of the judges taking some of the TV agents and a lot of armory to try to find Sylvie, we don't know exactly what next steps are, except for we see what happened to Sylvie, and she landed over there in Bronston, right?
I think it was Broxton, Oklahoma.
Yes, which is where the J.M. Straczynski run of Thor was set. That's where kind of Thor set up new Asgard on Earth. Was in Broxton.
That's right.
So that's a nice nod to that location. But we see her, go where anywhere would go back in the past when they're hungry, and that's to a McDonald's.
Yeah, McDonald's. What do you think they paid for that spot? McDonald's.
Oh man, well, I mean, tonight I had to try because they've introduced 2 new dipping sauces, so I had to go try those out. the
Oh, very nice.
sweet and spicy jam and the mambo sauce. Yeah,
Ah,
both were intriguing. I was like, all right, I got to try these new dipping sauces. So, if you're in the mood for a dipping sauce, give them a try, everybody. And they're not a sponsor for the show, but if McDonald's wants to be, feel free. Show GLJ Media some love, or at least pay us in dipping sauces. I will accept that.
yeah.
But Sylvie seems to be kind of taking a look around about everybody just kind of enjoying themselves, and she seems to be kind of happy about like, hey, all right, I could just be working here. I could just be here at this McDonald's with these people who are genuinely enjoying their lives, and it can be good. How are you feeling about where we find Cecilia at the end of season episode 1?
I don't know. It's just interesting. Like, I just don't know where do you go from here. Like, and is this the same Sylvie that Loki saw in that elevator? Is this a different version of that Sylvie that's hiding out in this random time in this random place? Like, that's the thing that's like the question for me, is that like which version of some of these characters are we seeing? And it's like, yeah, it's just I can't wait to see like how we start to move from here. Like, I just imagine that by the end of this season, my mind is going to be completely blown.
Yeah, I mean, knowing that we see her coming out of that elevator at the TVA does give you an indication that no matter how maybe at peace or at least somewhat happy she feels about her current situation at the end of episode 1, it's not going to last.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, John Dunphy, I'm going to ask you, what are your hopes for this season of Loki 2?
My hopes. My hopes. What are my hopes for season 2? I hope Obi is a good guy. I hope he's a good guy the whole time. I like that like Loki's getting his own like team together. I hope that by the end, I hope that a lot of this season is Loki, getting Sylvie, having Mobius, B-15, having OB. Like, it seems like he's assembling his own little team, and that we will like see them take on some big villain at the end. It feels like Loki's trying to build his own little version of the Avengers, or something like that. So I hope he has this like nice team coming together, and then we get like a really great version of Kang that comes out as this big bad, and it's just like an all-out battle at the end of season 2.
Yeah, it's I was reading an article about Kevin Wright, the one of the EPs of Loki, and was saying that while season 1 ended sort of on a cliffhanger where you see the timelines fracturing and stuff, that he kind of views season 2 as kind of like the both season 1 and season 2 is 2 books and a story, and like season 2 is not going to end on a cliffhanger, so it's going to kind of provide a satisfying resolution. But there certainly are elements to these characters that if they wanted to do with season 3, that a story could be told about them. But at least for season 2, that he said that it's going to be some kind of at least a fun resolution to the kind of turn TVA story arc.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, but I'd be down for give me season 3 if they have stuff that they want to explore with Loki. Give it. I'm down.
Yeah, I totally agree. Do you think we'll have any cameos or anything from this season of any other Marvel characters? I feel like they're always jumping to different times and places. Like, do you think we'll get any fun cameos from any other MCU characters?
Oh, yeah. There's part of me that's like, do we get any cameos of existing characters, or do you want to give me a cameo of somebody that we're gonna meet much later? I'm always down for if you want to tease me a little bit, show me a little sneak peek at the future of the MCU. I'm down with that. But I'm guessing we're not going to get Robert Downey Jr. We're not going to get
right.
Chris Evans. It would be cool to get Chris Hemsworth there for a moment, but I feel like that has larger implications for I don't know what they have in plan. I feel like at some point Loki, Thor, and this version of Loki will have to meet again. I would hope.
Yeah.
But with that's like they're saving that for a movie, or they want to do it within the TV show. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, that feels like a movie. That feels like a movie thing to me.
Yeah, but it also feels like, that's the kind of stuff that makes me feel like then, like as much as you say your TV shows count, they only count so much. If you can't get like a Chris Hemsworth to come and guest star for, a scene or two on your TV show, it's like, no, Chris Hemsworth doesn't do that for our TV stuff. He just does the big movies.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, and now that you got, Samuel L. Jackson, he did a whole series. Come on. Any of those movie guys can come in and just give me a little cameo.
Oh yeah, that's true. And I also feel like, they have used the shows for some big moments. So it wouldn't surprise me if we got like a Thor Loki reunion in the Loki series. Cause like, I know at the end of Endgame, we got Captain America giving the shield to Falcon, but he really didn't become the new Captain America until his series came out. Like that was like when he actually became Captain America, which I think is a pretty big moment. So yeah, I think they should use these shows for some big moments like that. So,
and I do forget that She-Hulk did have Mark Ruffalo on there for a
that's
few
true.
episodes.
Also, yeah, that is true.
Which is a nice get.
Okay.
That's certainly a nice little movie on TV kind of moment.
And Daredevil, right?
Heck yeah.
She-Hulk, yeah. So
yeah, show me the Punisher, guys. On Loki season 2, not. But I don't know. I know it's I don't know if it's just people's just current kind of trend right now at the moment to be kind of like, the MCU is in trouble. But for me, I watched just that episode and I felt it did enough kind of setting of plates for season 2 that I'm down to kind of see where the rest of the story goes. How did you feel?
No, I totally agree. I'm all the way in already on this season. I can't wait to see what they do next. Because I loved season 1 too. It was such a good season, and like you said, it did leave us on like a cliffhanger. So, but I feel like the way that season 2 started here now with episode 1, it just feels like we're really going to get like a satisfying conclusion, at least to this part of the story in Loki. And I episode 1, I feel like really set that up for me to have that feeling. So I can't wait.
Yeah, and I feel like the nice thing about Loki is that the show's called Loki, and the show's not called TVA. So if you wanted to do a 3rd season and have Loki outside the TVA doing other stuff with even though as much as we love this current supporting cast, if you really wanted to mix it up and have a different supporting cast, you totally could if you wanted to. Because I feel like Loki is a strong enough character that you could take him and spin him off into something else too.
Right. Yeah. Maybe Mobius ends up running the TVA and Loki decides to go do his own thing, and you could still call Mobius up and have him come and help Loki with something else somewhere. You know what I mean? Like you could still have like connections to the characters, but like finally leave the TVA.
You feel like at some point there's got to be the scene where Mobius actually gets to get on a jet ski.
Right. That has to be. We got to get that.
I always feel like I'm waiting for that to be like the last moment we see of Mobius, like in season 2 Loki. It's like him enjoying a moment to actually get on a jet ski and just take off and enjoy life for a while.
Oh, 100%. And you know what? Screw that X5 guy or whatever that was like started asking Mobius about the jet ski, and he's like, I don't care. And Mobius is like, well, then why did you ask? He deserves a ride on a jet ski.
But I am hoping though that whatever the MCU plans are, it would be cool to see Mobius in a film when it gets to the Kang stuff. I hope that character is going to be able to still be part of the TVA, and the TVA is still going to play a part when the Kang stuff does happen in the films.
Yeah, I totally agree. He could be like the new Coulson.
That's right. There you go.
Mobius. Yeah. I just hope that he lasts longer than Coulson did.
I feel like we're gonna at least dodge the bullet of, is Coulson really dead? Nope, he's an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., even though the rest of the MCU will never acknowledge that show was part of their timeline. Okay.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this episode, our inaugural episode of season 2 for the Loki after show right here on JLJ Media. Just two guys, one handsome, one not, talking about a really fun show. What a great way to spend a Tuesday evening, John. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of fun.
This is all your idea. This is a John Dunphy brainchild right here, everybody.
Well, I figured we'd both be watching anyway, so why not just talk about it if we have the time, right?
Absolutely. Who better to talk about it with? But ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us here. We'll be back next week with a recap for episode 2. But in the meantime, thanks everybody who's jumped in the YouTube channel. Share your thoughts in the chat. Also, feel free, anybody that did a super chat, thank you so much for that. But if you want to stay in touch with either John or myself, even after the show's over, and you want to hear, John's thoughts on anything Loki related, where can they find you, sir?
Find me at jdun89 on all social media platforms.
But what if they want to talk? Certainly the God of Mischief loves strategy as well. What if they want to talk strategy with you?
Yes. If you want my my other podcast, Strat Chat, you can find us at Strat Chat Pod on all social media platforms, where we talk about reality TV, Big Brother, The Challenge, Survivor, all kinds of shows like that. So come hang out.
Buddy Games made it into the mix yet? No.
We're not really talking about that one. It's I did check it out a little bit. It's kind of fun, but just too much other crap to watch.
Folks, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HappyGoJackie. And of course, we are broadcasting to you live, or if you're listening to this as a podcast later on in audio form, thanks to the always amazing, always talented, always fantastic James Ladd Jr. and JLJ Media. So feel free to follow James Ladd Jr. on all social media handles at James Ladd and JLJ Media as well. Follow them, and so you can find the latest and greatest of everything that James has got going on this network. We are just one small piece of a large JLJ Media empire. So come on in. There's plenty to explore here at JLJ Media. But folks, that'll do it for this episode of the Loki After Show. We'll be back here next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific time to break down episode 2. But until then, mind your variants. My great tag for this show, John. Look at me.